You are in for a very special treat. This is going to be a live stream that's really going to touch your heart, and let's just jump right into it. So I'm going to start first with Amanda, and then we'll go to Richard. But Amanda, this book, Living Life in Fast Forward, it's a legacy book. It's a special book. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so this book was written by my late husband, James, and he was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 26 at first, and we thought that he'd actually beat the disease. And so after his treatment was complete the first time around, it was about a year of our life, treating, chemo, radiation, surgery. And then it was like, okay, we beat it. Let's get back to life and, catch up on all the things that we missed out on or that we've missed just doing. And then just a few months later was re-diagnosed, and this time more serious. A terminal prognosis was given. But even still, we thought we had a few years of time, perhaps. So James said, I'm going to write a book. And although, some might think, like, you have this precious amount of time, like you've been given this, finite amount of time. Do you really want to spend all your time writing a book? That did not surprise me at all that James was up for that challenge, because he's just that kind of person. So yeah, he took it on, and he finished writing. We actually talked about it. I talked to him about it, and Richard talked to him about it the day that he died, just kind of where we were at with the process. So right up until the very end, he was very invested in this project.
That is amazing. Well, first of all, I know today's bittersweet probably, and yet we were chatting pre-show that you posted a little bit yesterday about the book, and the response was really overwhelming. I saw it. It popped right up on my feed. And why do you think so many people jumped in and responded, and just, with gratitude and thankfulness and memories, even though this was how many years ago?
James died in 2020, March of 2020, actually. So right as the pandemic was kind of hitting the world, and we were in Toronto. So it was actually the day he died was the first day I wasn't able to go to his appointment with him, because they had sort of started all these restrictions.
Protocols, yeah.
But yeah, that this is where I'll get emotional probably, but
that's okay. Yeah.
The outpouring of love is just, we have the best army of friends and family. James, although he's been gone for 4.5 years, I think he's still very much a part of many people's day-to-day life. He is for me, obviously, but I think for most people, like, he was just such a source of knowledge and wisdom beyond his years. He was a very busy person. Like, he was so intelligent. He, did multiple degrees at the same time, and had this work ethic, and very smart, very athletic, like just good at kind of everything in an annoying way. But he always had time for his people, and he would make time if he didn't have it, like, he just really invested himself in other people.
Totally.
And whether that was just advice, or, he would prep people for their interviews and pretend to be the interviewer for all of his, business friends and stuff. So it just really was a number one kind of person to a lot of people, and vice versa. Like, he just had so many best friends and great people in his corner. And so I think that is why we just have this amazing group of people surrounding us. Like, they just feel that way about him, just the way that he felt about them. And yeah, I didn't really think about it, but it's not surprising that there was such a positive response to his book finally being available,
Yeah.
and people are just really excited to kind of hear his voice again, I think.
Thank you for sharing. I know that's really hard and really brave. And I think there's people who are going to be watching this as a replay. They're going to be tagging people who've also gone through something maybe similar. But Richard, let's go to you here for a moment. I know when you reached out to our team at Igniting Souls, you basically said, look, this is going to be a different type of book. It's going to be a special book. And, you know, our team has really walked with you in this journey. We want to honor James, his legacy. But why did you feel like it was time to share James' story?
Well, he really left the task with the two of us, mainly Amanda, to figure out what to do with his manuscript. You know, he dedicated himself, as you heard from Amanda, pretty seriously to that project. And, you know, thankfully, he was able to essentially finish what he had to say. He was pretty obsessive, and so went through, I think, 47 drafts or something, you know, changing and whatnot. And so, you know, we were left with that manuscript wondering, okay, now where do we go with it? And it just a blessing to have met you, Kary, and your team. And because I know James was anxious about working with an editor and a publisher and having his words changed.
Yes.
And you didn't do that. You really just sort of reshaped what he had to say and made it more accessible and hopefully more impactful for the people who are going to read it. So thank you.
Listen, I got to give our team really a shout out. And let's even read this quote here. It says, I know that even in our darkest chapters and literal worst nightmares, we still hold the pen and we retain authorship of our own stories. And I'm getting chills, man, because how powerful is it for someone to speak from beyond the grave? I mean, it's wow. So yeah, our team definitely wanted to represent his voice. I know that was important to Amanda, important to Richard, important to James. I also think it's powerful. One of the things that struck me right away the first time we had our meeting was your relationship, because you're still very much involved, Richard, and Amanda, and that's a beautiful, rare thing. Amanda, what do you credit that to? Like, you know, still having this presence of Richard, you know, the grandparents in the lives.
Oh, I just don't think I just didn't see another way. Like, I mean, I was with James since high school. I was with James for 12 years before he passed. We grew up together, James and I, like, you know, in a relationship the whole time, but grew up together. And Richard and Joanne were like another set of parents to me. And then, you know, to be pregnant when James died, and have his son on the way, and to be kind of dealing with grief and joy, everything in between. I mean, they just have been great, and I don't even know what I would have done without them. It was, no other option was even on the table. So I'm glad that they didn't say anything different, and they were, you know, down for that as well. But they're awesome grandparents. They're awesome parent-in-laws, if you want to even call them that. and yeah, I'm really, really appreciative to have them in my life. So
that's powerful. Wow.
Yeah, I remember the first day we met Amanda.
Yeah.
After one of James's football games, and he brought, you know, this person over, and, you know, we knew instantaneously she's going to be part of the family.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so good.
Love it first.
That is so good. Well, that, you know, and I know it's probably difficult to see some of these pictures, but the moment you told me about James, I went right on his Instagram, and you know, just even this picture here is pretty cool. You can tell. Talk to me about this picture, Amanda.
Well, that's our wedding. I'm obviously nowhere to be found in the in the
I
profile.
get that. It was the guy's picture.
Yeah.
I get
Yeah, I mean, this really does just sum it up. Like, he just has this huge, amazing group of guys that are, the picture is actually much bigger than what you
Wow.
see in the circle. And, everyone, uh, those guys are, a lot of them are from high school, they're our high
Yeah.
school friends, university friends, business school friends. Like, he just had the best army of people around him. And what was awesome was, every time he had treatment,
Mm.
I mean, I went to every and anything that I could go to, but often there would be someone that would join us as well,
Wow.
and just kind of hang out. We would just hang out, and it was a lot of those guys in that picture that would come to the hospital and sit with us while James was getting chemo, and we'd play cards,
Mm.
hang out, and talk. And we were just beyond fortunate to have an amazing group of friends. I mean, his life clearly on Instagram, and
Yeah.
I mean, Instagram is just a highlight reel. We know that, but truly, like, it was a beautiful, beautiful life that he had. So, surrounded by beautiful people and really amazing experiences. So he really did live life to the fullest. And right up till his last day, he was, still talking to all those people and whenever he could, and not even just to pass the time, but just because he wanted to. And that was a big part of the book. Like, it wasn't about, I think it was in his nature just to want to give people advice and help them in the way that he knew how, which, this lessons from someone whose life got sped up. Like, I don't want you to have to go through these horrible things. I just want you to maybe kind of think about things the way that I'm thinking about them now, having to deal with this traumatic event.
Right.
I don't want you to have to deal with that part. I just want you to, think about these things that I'm now thinking of. I want you to live your life with a purpose. I want you to, reset your priorities if things aren't working for you. Like, why suffer? Why wait? Why, not do it now? Like, why wait until you're retired? Like, what,
Yeah.
purpose kind of in doing this, something you love, putting that off for however long, having gratitude, spending time with people you love, being intentional, finding a purpose in your life. Like, all of that is the message of the book, but also just kind of his messaging every day to any of his people. So, yeah, I think that was the intention for him, was I just want to have this, I want to leave something for my people that they will have when they're doubting themselves, because really their answer is, in themselves already. I just want to help them get there if I can.
That's powerful. Richard, the title, I know from day one, everything about this book, you said, I want to honor James, the voice, Amanda, the whole thing. And I think it was it January, maybe December, January, we
Yeah,
first
I think
met.
so.
And, fast forward, and it did take time to really honor him the right way. But talk to us about this book itself. Like, what's with the title, the cover, everything?
Well, I think it's a simple message, and that's what I like about the, it's a short book. It's an easy read in some ways, even though it's very impactful. But the simplicity of the message, I think, is expressed in the title.
Yeah.
That it's, what if life wasn't fast forward? What would change for you? And it might happen for real. As Amanda said, it's an exercise, and a lot of the questions James asks, I think, are important for us to ask ourselves once in a while, about what really matters and who really matters in our lives. And at the same time, I think this book will really help other people who find themselves in James's exact situation. And that might happen to any of us. As we know, life is fragile, and anybody's life can be put on fast forward before we know it.
Yeah.
And it was really Amanda's idea, right, of the hourglass shattering. That, that idea that life, just carries on, and the sand, gradually trickles away as time passes. And then suddenly there's a crisis and all the priorities change, right? I thought that was just
That's interesting.
Great image, and
that is
captures the idea perfectly.
I think it's also when you're young, right? Like you have this invincible kind of.
Yeah, there's lots of sand left in the hourglass, right?
I have my whole life ahead of me. Like, I don't need to rush. And it's not about rushing. Like, James definitely it wasn't about rushing. It was just sort of reprioritizing and refocusing, like, what really mattered. Don't do something that you hate because you think there's going to be a reward. You think there might be a reward, 20 years down the road. Like, that's not how life works sometimes. Tomorrow's never promised. And you might think you have most of your hourglass left when all of a sudden, a crack or a little sprinkle up the top starts to kind of affect that amount of time you have left. And that was, that was our experience. Like, he, in all the sense of the word, was like the healthiest person. He was super active. He was, ate healthily and lived a healthy lifestyle, if you will. But he was, maybe arguably a workaholic, and was really doing that for positive reasons, right? Like to support his family, to, create a good life for us and for future children and whatnot. Like, it wasn't, malintent at all. It just ended up being like all of this, when cancer happened to James, what is really important. It was none of that stuff that he had poured hours of his life into. It was the relationships. It was, his family, his friends, being outside, just looking at the ocean, hanging out, just being really free and meditating and, just kind of reassessing your life. So as much as that's not realistic, people have to work, they have to make a living, they have to live, live their life like they are going to live forever in some ways. I think, when you're in that sort of moment of, what should I do? What's important to me? I think a lot of these questions that James asks is a nice way to kind of recenter yourself and focus on what truly matters.
So true. I think this book is going to touch people in ways you don't even realize. For example, what do you think, Richard, someday his son saying, I want to learn more about what Dad had to say in his final words? I mean, what do you think, even from that perspective? And then,
for sure.
And then you think that that's a natural curiosity that will happen?
Yeah. And, he's only 4 years old, so he knows about this person, James, and, he'll gradually, understand what the connection is, in good time. And having, the book itself, plus all the other things, we have these days, videos and posts and all those things we've kept. But the book is just so tangible and so sort of focused, and a distillation of what James thought was really important in life.
That's right. That's right.
It's going to be something I look forward to sharing with Mason when he's ready.
Yeah.
Oh wow. And Amanda, what's that?
As soon as he can read, we'll just give him.
Yeah, it might be one of the first books. Jump right over. Jump over.
The other thing I wanted to say about James's experience is, Amanda spent much more time with him, but I never heard him complain about it being unfair or why me. It just never came up in any of our conversations. It happened. And how am I going to deal with this? And in a strange way, and I think it took some time to get around to this point, thanks to, his care team helping him to cope and think about his situation, But I think he asked himself, how can I take advantage, of this in a strange way, an opportunity to change his direction from, totally all in, work focused, success driven, that lifestyle. And I think that's the gift it gave him.
Wow.
I think he probably spent more time with the people that mattered to him in the last 2 years of his life than he would have in 10 years of his previous life.
Wow. And oh, look at this. Keith is saying blessings, everyone. Wow. So you got people, like I said, this thing's going out on many, many channels, and people will watch the replay for sure. But let's make sure we talk about this piece of it, because I think this is pretty powerful. What are we looking at here? Either one of you, feel free to jump in.
So this, when James's cancer recurred and he realized that he wasn't going to survive it, we talked a lot about, okay, so, what does that mean, and what kind of impact and legacy would he like to leave? And I wish I didn't know how to pronounce that word, but it's rhabdomyosarcoma. It's extremely rare. It's actually a childhood cancer, and in children, the success rate for cure is much, much higher.
Really?
It does occur in young people, adolescents, and people in their 20s like James. And in those cases, it's almost always deadly.
Wow.
So, as we talked, we thought, that network of people that have supported him throughout his life would like to do something, And so we set this up while James was still with us, and set the priorities and the focus. And we are collaborating with the research team at Princess Margaret Cancer Centre in Toronto on some research projects. Thanks to this huge group of supporters, we're close to $1 million in fundraising so far. And I think it was something at first James was resistant to, because he didn't want it to be about him, and but I think he realized that, hey, if this could help make a difference and avoid other young people going through what he did, then it's worth it.
That's so powerful. That is powerful. All right. Well, listen, as we kind of move on and say what happens after the book, Amanda, let me ask you that question. If Richard and I met in Strategic Coach, we often have this question that's asked: if we were having this conversation 3 years from today, and what would need to happen so that you would say, oh my gosh, this book really was impactful? What do you see happening with this book?
Yeah, I think that's kind of twofold. I think my personal side, and then the bigger picture side. I think obviously, like, just having our friends and family, eventually James's son, having this piece of him, hearing his voice, like I can hear James in the pages, like it's just how he talks. So it's just so, powerful for people who did know him to have that piece of him, especially since they haven't heard him in a few years. And then obviously just the topic and the accessibility for people who are, struggling with any sort of health issue or a family member of someone who's struggling with a health issue, whether they're terminal or not. I think it's just a nice way to sort of, you're going through this and it sort of derailed your life. What could you kind of do? I hope that people really get strength from it, and are able to just look at their life and figure out what's important and what they want to spend their precious days on. Because even if they are not terminal and they are going to live a long, happy, healthy life, after this whatever challenge they're going through, sometimes you just have to sort of reprioritize your time, because everyone's time is so precious. So I would love to see it just reach people who need it, whatever that means, whatever number of people that is. I just really would love for people to get strength from it. So
totally. Wow. Richard, we'll land the plane here with you and basically say that, first of all, thank you, because you both could have said, "Yeah, it's too much work," or, "What if we get it wrong?" The fact that you did it afraid, you did it imperfectly. I know that was in the beginning. Hey, how do we get it right? Because James would have a certain way. But you kind of said, look, the why is bigger than us getting it perfect. We need to get it out. So, Richard, what would you say to somebody who, just might be thinking that I got to have everything perfect in my life before I take action on anything, and they could be healthy? What would you tell someone?
Well, I remember that advice from a wonderful prof I had in one of the programs I did, and he said, "Don't make the perfect the enemy of the good."
Oh, that's good.
Right.
That's good.
And I guess that's the message, right? You're only ever ready so much to take a big step in your life, right? You're never going to be 100% ready. And so either, as soon as you feel like you're almost ready, that's as close as you're probably going to get. So either take the step or don't.
That's powerful. And folks, with that point, I really believe James' message is truly for all of us, because Amanda nailed it. She said that none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. And so we all really need to live life in fast forward. So thank you so much, Amanda, Richard, and James, for being here today.
Thanks, Kary.
Thanks for having us.